open arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, 'cause you know the truth, and the truth is love, yes it is. Wasn't what they said to you, or anything that you learn from a book or from the news. It's not like that, 'cause it's a thing. It is something that you do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
Welcome to the Bassline, everyone. Dr. Ariyana Love is innovative in her approach as a doctor. She is also a ferocious researcher, helping to connect dots that have not previously been connected. She is fascinating and insightful. It is my privilege to welcome to the Bassline the passionate Dr. Ariyana Love. Welcome, Dr. Love. How are you today?
Hi, Jeremiah. Thanks for having me. It's good to hear your voice.
You too. I'm so honored to have you, and I'm so looking forward to this discussion. Having checked out your Substack in particular over the past week, you really have some interesting insights, things that I haven't come across in the entire range of the medical freedom discussion thus far. And I would love to start with you just explaining some of your approach and your background, I guess, first of all, as a doctor, because from the comments that I've heard, you have some rather unique insights. And it seems to me that your protocols are unlike the protocols that someone is likely to come across in other settings. So please tell us about your approach as a doctor, if you would.
Well, thank you. I was raised by my father. He pioneered the field of homeopathy, homeopathy and natural medicine. So he founded the first Natural Healing Institute in Northern California in 1981. I studied with him, really in early childhood. He started training me at about the age of 10, and he opened my mind to to the reality of the body system and how we are intricately related to our soul is a big part of healing. And the spirit, and there's the spiritual side of healing. He opened this door for me. And so when I was 19, I enrolled in my first healing institute and began getting certified in various healing modalities. That was Hartwood Institute of the Healing Arts School. It was an incredible place. And I had access to everything, every type of healing modality that existed at that time that was natural. So for me, my approach and my dad's approach, it's all about respecting the inner terrain of your body. And there are different ways you can approach healing. You can approach healing from the spiritual, from the physical, from the emotional, from the psychological. Any of those approaches, if you do it correctly, will heal all of the body systems. The body is somewhat complex, and we do have we have cells in the body which are like little tiny living organisms that have certain needs like a child would have, and you have to respect those needs. You have to respect your body and your cells and the processes if you want it to heal. So I had this understanding from a very young age, the terrain theory, which is completely different from the modern allopathic medicine, which is Rockefeller medicine, which was founded in 1908. Before Rockefeller medicine, it was only homeopathy. All of the hospitals in America and in Europe, they were all homeopathic hospitals. But the Rockefellers and their, agenda to phase out natural medicine was very successful, and so we don't have this knowledge anymore. We've lost it. My dad, he was sort of pioneering the field to revitalize it, and so have I been now. I was on the first wave of naturopathic medicine. So when naturopathic medicine arose, there were two medical teams, one in Canada, one in the United States. that were collaborating, and they were basically trying to revitalize ancient traditional homeopathic medicine because it was being phased out, and they recognized this. So in the 1980s, they were petitioning and campaigning the government to get them to recognize naturopathy. They coined a new term. When I was in the private institute studying in natural medicine in private institutes, I was on that first wave of naturopathy. So I'm old school, a naturopath. And that means I was right there in the beginning, and I was studying. The only place to actually study this was in private institutes. Now we only have 2 university programs for getting a doctorate in naturopathy, and that is through pharmaceutically funded programs. So the naturopathic doctor license is a 4 or 5 year degree, but they're really conformed to the system. So they are prescribing pharmaceuticals now. They can do both, limited pharmaceuticals. And this, I'm against it, because I'm all about healing. I want the body to heal, not to be poisoned. And that's all that pharmaceuticals do. And so as I grew, so my early 20s, I began as a doctor. Well, I was being trained as a doctor of natural medicine. And I didn't ever think I would be able to open a practice because people are so brainwashed in the Rockefeller system. And I didn't think that, I had trouble getting them to listen to me, friends, family, anybody with cancer. I was watching my dad reversing cancer for decades, and I really didn't understand how he was doing it. He's approaching the spiritual part of a person and getting people in touch with their spiritual self so they can heal, but also releasing the emotional attachments and the emotional memory of trauma, which is recorded in our cells. So whether we like it or not, and whether we want to go around acting like, ignoring these things, these issues, these traumas, they are recorded in our cells, and you can never escape them. You have to face the fire. You have to face it head on. And this is what my father helps people do through his own methods. So in 2011, I started segueing into journalism. So my background in the university, my education is in film, motion picture video. But I had no patience for Hollywood. It was a cesspool of dysfunction. And I didn't, I went there for a while, and like a year, and then I got out and went into corporate finance. And I went to Finland with my team, and we were acquiring advanced technologies over there. So I was familiar with nanotechnology all the way back then, and I understood what it could be used for, mostly the good things, because that's all that it was being talked about back then. And then in 2013, I began mentoring as a journalist with the Liberty Beacon. And I did that for many years. And this, I built 2 websites from the ground up. And I guess I was good at what I did because they got hacked and taken down. And then I began to be attacked with defamation. And they have deplatformed me across social media. I would have millions of followers right now, but they kept deplatforming me and did not want me to have a voice, did not want me to have an audience. So a lot of people look at me and they think I'm not qualified enough to do what I do because my online footprint, my online data bits, and all my work was tyrannically removed across social media. There were people campaigning against me in the shadows. So I didn't stop, though. I kept going. I loved journalism, and most of the work that I did was really more like a service to humanity. I founded an international foundation in 2011 because I as a humanitarian foundation, because I wanted to do humanitarian work. That's where my heart is at. I wasn't really a corporate finance type of a person, even though I thought it was very good training. I wanted to go into the field of human rights. It was much more appealing to me. So I found that as a journalist, I'm really a hands-on learner. So I've always had very interesting mentors. Mentorship is the way that I learned, not through the university, because I understood, I see through things. I've had the sight and the gift to see things since I was a child, and my dad helped foster that and open those channels and those doors for me. So I could see very clearly that there was an agenda behind, university education. It was very hard to find a field that I could study, with either nutrition or natural medicine. And I didn't want to veer from the things that I'm passionate about and I believe in. So I went the route of, independent research, independent mentorship, independent education through independent institutes, then founded an independent institute of my own. And, so I'm really, so through the last 16, well, now going on 17 years as a journalist, I developed research skills that the average person doesn't have. I've been on the front line of independent media for that entire time. So I see all of the breaking news. I've got the knowledge that average citizen doesn't have, because I'm seeing what's going on.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you about, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of your process as a researcher, I mean, one thing that's exciting about these terrible times is that a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise been citizen journalists have been compelled into citizen journalism, and a lot of the medical freedom doctors are putting out information pertaining mostly to their particular area of expertise. But in your case, you not only have the medical background and the background as a healer, but I've noticed that your articles and the topics that you take on are very broad ranging, very specific, often topics that are otherwise unknown, uncovered. What guides you in terms of how you select what you're going to research, and just give us some insight into your process as a researcher, if you would, because the outcome is very fascinating.
Well, thank you. It's a wonderful question. Well, in 2018, I started segueing into reading peer-reviewed literature, and it was a foreign language to me. That was not what I was trained in. I mean, I'm trained as a journalist, but I applied my research skills and I taught myself. I really wanted to understand that field of science, because there's a plethora of information there that I wanted to tap into. And it was a curiosity, really, that guided me. So for a year, I spent reading peer-reviewed papers every day, several a day, and it was very difficult to get through them. I was like, what are they saying? And but after about a year of that, I got familiar with them, and I could read them like any newspaper or any article, and it was comfortable. And then 2019, I was still, and then in 2020, when I recognized that there's a shedding phenomenon, I was adversely affected by the aerosolization of the vaccines after people take them. It's the nanoparticles that lipid nanoparticles that aerosolize. So I was aware this is an aerosolized weapon system just by how my body reacted to it. I've always been very sensitive to my body system. So I was very concerned about that, and I was having severe adverse reactions, and so were people in my audience. So I was trying to understand that, and I felt compelled to, the so-called vaccine inserts were blank. So I tried my hand at reading the patents. I thought, well, how are we going to find out what is in these jabs if they're not telling us? So I thought, well, they have to disclose everything in the patents. So I started reading patents. And I literally had to teach myself that language too, because that's very difficult. And the amount of time that it took for me to learn was pretty intense. I spent 12 hours, about 12 days in a row. I would, maybe longer, 12, 14 hours. I just would roll out of bed and go sit in front of the computer. And I felt drawn. I mean, it's my passion. Like, I really love knowledge. I really wanted to understand. And I don't want anyone telling me how to think. I'm not a conformist. I see things from my own perspective. So I don't care to conform. I want the knowledge. So anyway, I taught myself to read the patents. And on day 12, something just went. It clicked. And then all of a sudden, I'm speaking that language. And I can read the patents. I mean, I literally, because they write these patents in codes. And so I translated each code, each word that I didn't understand. And that's what I was doing those 12 to 14 hours a day. And then finally, when it clicked, I could read patents. And I continued to research, and I read them all. I read all of the COVID-19 vaccine patents. Not only did I read them, but I study them. I study components to them, and I continuously discover new things, like the anthrax being, an antigen in the COVID-19 vaccines. They're in all vaccines. And I'm like, wait a minute, anthrax is a known bioweapon. What is that doing in here? What is that doing being an antigen? How can they justify that being something to evoke an immune response? So once I saw, but the thing about the patents that really terrified me was the genetic deletions that they're doing. They're deleting genetic codes that are really critical to humans. And the result is a reduction of the lifespan. And they can do that with their nanoparticles, programmable little robots. And so that is when I wrote to Stu Peters and with my findings, and he decided to have me on his show. And thank God, because I could sound the alarm and with my research. So now, I mean, I can go through a peer-reviewed paper. I find stuff. After I read those patents and I discovered what they're doing, I set about finding solutions for detoxing the poison. And I immediately began a practice. People were flooding to me because they had nowhere to go, and they were vaccine injured, and they were injured by the shedding too. Same symptoms across the board, at least, that very similar. A lot of hemorrhaging and strange bleeding in the beginning. So I developed a practice right away and started healing people, started detoxing and removing the poison and finding what natural medicines would do that. And interestingly, our governments, they actually, and the NIH, they actually study each and every one of the natural medicines that, quote unquote, stop the replication of SARS-CoV-2. They know exactly what stops their graphene oxide nanoparticles from replicating. They know exactly what natural medicines stop the replication of the spike protein. That's what SARS-CoV-2 is. That's what they mean by that. And so I study what they study. And I don't know why other doctors don't think to do that, and why they typically look down upon natural medicine when it's actually science. It's scientific, and the government takes it seriously. Yeah. So I began trialing with my clients with the most potent. Well, early on, I learned from, I can't remember if it was Pierre Corey, or I can't remember which doctor it was, or if it was Dr. Peter McCullough, but one of them mentioned how graphene oxide nanoparticles attack the cells in the body that are the weakest and then weaken them more. So any underlying conditions a person has become acute, and they start dealing with that again. So a lot of people, their minds can't draw the connection between the vaccine and the injury. And they say, oh, no, I had this before. So we knew early on that the graphene oxide nanoparticles are speeding up the dying process. They're inducing cell death, and they're aging people. A lot of people reported having wrinkles show up on their face and no energy, and they're being aged. So my technique and my approach was to look at the anti-aging medicines, how to reverse that process. So I researched the natural medicines that have the greatest power in the body to rescue the immune system and to restore the cellular processes.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's such incredible research that you're doing, and your perspective is so unique. I wish we had an hour for every subcategory of what we have lined up to discuss here, because there's so many things still left to discuss, and time is just flying. I want to invite anyone who'd like to talk to this fascinating individual, my guest, Dr. Ariyana Love. Please call the number to call here at the Progressive Radio Network, 888-874-4888. You can get lined up, and we'll go to calls towards the end of the program. Before we continue and get into some really interesting and specific stuff, I would like to make a few announcements. The 528 jam session that we've been doing in Harlem was really fun this past Sunday, and we're immediately committed to the next date, which is May 25th, another Sunday. So please save that date, Sunday, May 25th. More players are jumping into the jam session. We're just getting better at every aspect of the process. So we really would love to see you there. It's a great place to meet other listeners of this program, and it's sort of a de facto medical freedom meetup. It's just a jam session and a get-together. It's not officially a medical freedom meeting, but there are medical freedom people there, and a great place to meet them is at that jam session. So again, the address is 274 Lenox Avenue. That's Malcolm X Boulevard. And the venue is called Rockmill, Rokmil. It's the house of a really unique fitness system innovated by my friend Milton Washington. But it's also just a great place where community events happen. So please save that date, Sunday, May 25th. Also, please, of course, check out my Substack. I put out an article not long ago called "Be Careful Who You Pretend to Be." And I'm not going to explain it. I ask you to just go check out the article. It's a reference to a famous Kurt Vonnegut quote, "Be careful who you pretend to be." Also, check out my previous article called "Stop the Shots," which is an invitation to our nightly X space that's hosted from the Stop the Shots community page. We have fascinating guests and discussions every night. We welcome you to join that community. And please check out the article that I wrote called "Stop the Shots," which is an invitation to that community. Also, and we're going to announce all this before we wrap up today, but definitely look for Dr. Ariyana Love on Substack. That's Ariyana spelled Ariyana, love, like Love, right? The power of love, the message of love, et cetera, et cetera. A million song titles and poems that mention love. It's that love, Love. Look up Dr. Ariyana Love. That's at DrLoveAriyana. And she has a fascinating Substack. So you can even open that up as a reference point as we continue the discussion here. Now, we're going to get into something pretty heavy duty. Again, I wish we had an hour just for this conversation. But this whole issue of the Russia-Ukrainian war, it's very, very profound what happened and what is continuing to happen over there in that part of the world. And I noticed that when COVID hit, it was simply remarkable that all of these nations, even nations that were apparently enemies or politically antagonistic historically, they were all in line with the COVID agenda. They just all seemed to repeat the same propaganda that made me wonder, who is the real puppet master here? Who gives these various heads of state their scripts, their orders? this truly changes my concept of geopolitics. Then, as though it were the next chapter of a book, the Russia-Ukraine war kicks off, and Biden and Putin went from being collaborators effectively in the COVID agenda to, now they are rivals in warfare, which made me look at that war in a different way. I was thinking, are these guys like actors in a movie? Is this like Sylvester Stallone starring with, Arnold Schwarzenegger here or something in some sort of production whereby both leaders are greasing the wheels of their own military industrial complex on either side of the Atlantic? It just struck me as strange how they went from being collaborators, it seemed, to then being antagonists. But then we have this weird issue of the biolabs of Ukraine, and we still, for the most part, remain ignorant in terms of what really transpired with this COVID virus and what is really the state of bio warfare in the world, and so many unanswered questions in that respect. But you do some really interesting reporting in terms of looking into this discussion of the Ukrainian biolabs. Can you tell us about the Ukrainian biolabs and what link there may be, if any, that you're aware of in terms of the COVID event and then the Russia-Ukraine war that we launched into directly on the heels of COVID?
Sure. Well, what Russia did when they went into Ukraine is they exposed the U.S. biolabs. The U.S. biolabs are, and they submitted their documentation to the UN Security Council, who did not follow through with an investigation. So there's no accountability. But these U.S. biolabs in Ukraine, they're producing the COVID-19 technology, and then they're smuggling it out through humanitarian organizations. I did write about this and reported this on Stu Peters' show, and this is based on Russian documents, but the mainstream media would not touch the information. Nobody reported on it. I was the first to break the news, the first journalist, and then Tucker Carlson picked up the story. So he saw my news report, and then he complemented it with one of his own. But we were like the only two to even really report on it. I think Ossie Kosak, an independent journalist, also touched upon it. But, I mean, that was it. And I'm like, this is huge, huge news. And I'm like, I have to write an article. And then, so the thing is that they're able to 3D print graphene oxide nanoparticles with a 3D printer. This is how they're able to mass produce it, put it into the COVID-19 vaccines, aerosolize, spray it, et cetera, et cetera. They're using 3D printers, and they're probably doing it in the U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. They're absolutely providing things like anthrax, E. coli, genetically modified and more deadly E. coli, which is causing people to have these colon cancers. There's a high rise of colon cancers in the youth, which, we never had before. Things like that. There's many different types of poisons that they're producing there in those U.S. biolabs, and they're smuggling it out under the guise of humanitarian foundations, humanitarian organizations. And I'm going to give you an example. I did some research just for you, Jeremiah, to release some new information. So there is a monoclonal antibody. So in the beginning, when people were injured from the COVID-19 vaccines, the pharmaceutical companies started coming out with these treatments, such as monoclonal antibodies. But they're not actually monoclonal antibodies. They're actually bioweapons. The monoclonal antibodies are mRNA gene therapy, and they contain gene editing technology. Now, when you delete the genetic codes in any targeted cell groups, you will kill the whole body. You can target the liver and delete certain codes there, or any other organ in the body, and once you do that, you've shortened the lifespan of the entire organism, which is the human body, the human vessel, down to 1 to 2 to 3 years. You can knock decades off of people's lives. And that's exactly what they're doing now with monoclonal antibodies as well. But the monoclonal antibody it targets another component to the immune system. So the vaccines themselves will target the T cells and take them out. That's part of an essential part of our immune system that attacks foreign invaders. So they're disabling those. And then you add the treatment, which is the supposed monoclonal antibody, and that takes out the mitochondria, or it would take out the T cells. Oh, no. Sorry, I haven't talked about this in a while, but that was when they introduced the the targeting of the T cells. So they did all of this in stages. But when they started actually taking out people's T cells was when they introduced this. The first monoclonal antibody to hit the market was Bamlanivimab. Sorry, it's hard to pronounce. Bamlanivimab. It's BAMLANIVIMAB. Now, this is owned by Eli Lilly and Company. They have a foundation in Ukraine where they are donating through Project Hope. They donate insulin. They provide $7.5 million worth of insulin to people in Ukraine, cancer treatments, and COVID-19 treatments for Ukrainians. And this Lilly Foundation collaborates with the World Health Organization. They've facilitated $1.8 million of supply with this pharmaceutical drug called they always have weird names, baricitinib, BARICITINIB. And that is a COVID-19 treatment, also sold as Olumiant. Now, this particular drug works by blocking the JAK1 and the JAK2 genes. That means gene deletion. They're deleting genetic codes under the guise of a COVID-19 treatment. I read the patent, and it contains hydrogen and deuterium. And deuterium is a hydrogen isotope. But when I read the patent, I skimmed through it, and it's not absorbable by the body. It's completely a poison. And they were experimenting with it as a supposed cancer treatment, but the concentrations needed were too high for therapeutic use. It sterilizes and induces cell death, and yet they're giving this to the Ukrainians. They're testing this on the Ukrainians. This is unapproved medical intervention, and they're testing it on the poor Ukrainians. So once you delete the JAK1 gene, it results in lethality. It creates, it deteriorates your immune system, creates tumors, and when you delete this JAK2 protein, it's a genetic sequence in the genome, which is involved with cell signaling and immune response. It causes embryonic death and blood cell formation, basically, clotting, and it leads to lethal anemia and thrombocytopenia and cancer. So it induces death, basically. So this company called Lilly, they're in Ukraine, and they have a monoclonal antibody, which is an unapproved intervention. And that monoclonal antibody, Bamlanivimab, it's hard to say, it contains human genes, human DNA. Sorry, it contains human DNA. So monoclonal antibodies usually use something like, an animal protein or something. And it's a weird, but human? To put human DNA into something and inject that or infuse it into people's veins, this is absolute warfare.
Yeah.
And so this is what they're doing. They're experimenting on the Ukrainians, and then they are shipping, and they say this, and they boast about it. They are shipping bioweapons out of their bioweapons, probably from these Ukrainian biolabs, and they're shipping them in convoys and bringing them to Europe. Now, Amnesty International gets down rights against the Russian government for bombing humanitarian convoys. But see, the Russians, what they're doing is they're actually bombing convoys carrying bioweapons meant for Europeans and the rest of the world. And this is the kind of stuff that's going on in Ukraine. And they are trafficking humans. They are trafficking babies. They are harvesting the umbilical cord blood because they use it in stem cell, not only research, but they actually inject it into people in the West to make them youthful. And you have to harvest that. Well, and they're taking baby stem cells, and you have to harvest that from babies when they're alive. So they're doing this organ stem cell trafficking from Ukraine and using this stem cell in the COVID-19 vaccines. It's part of their weapon system.
Wow.
Like, those fibrous clots that people are seeing in people's veins, the embalmers. Well, they need stem cells to fuel the growth of those. It's a tissue scaffolding technology. It's synthetic biology, and it is graphene oxide based. That's how they get it to replicate so effectively. But they need stem cells to feed the artificial tissue to get it to grow like that. They need oxygen and they need stem cells. And this is how they're getting that growth to happen inside the body. It's all connected to Ukraine and the U.S. biolabs. It's all originating from there because there's restrictions and oversight to some degree in the United States. They can't develop these bioweapons in the U.S., but they can do it in a country that's has a genocide going on. They can get away with stuff over there in Ukraine.
Right. Yeah, this is very intensive stuff, and I encourage everyone to please check out Dr. Ariyana Love's Substack. It's really a gem in terms of there's information there that you won't find anywhere else. I haven't come across it anywhere else, and I'm looking every day. And another subject, quite different, but also in the same category in terms of something rather esoteric for most, this subject of methylene blue. I'm not very familiar with the substance in general. I don't in general take medications. I mean, I've used supplements to some extent over the years, but I'm not one to pursue medications. But then this whole COVID event made people discuss, in a way I've never heard before, various prophylactic medications that we should have handy in terms of preventing illness, bouncing back from viral illness, what have you. And this substance of methylene blue has been mentioned. I've noticed it mostly in the past few months, really. There was an interesting little photo op, sort of strange photo ops in terms of Robert F. Kennedy. That's a whole other discussion, but it's very strange to me how RFK posed with the Trump family to advertise McDonald's. And after they did that, they posed again days later to do another big ad for McDonald's. I didn't understand what the deal was with that. I mean, he's supposed to be a new health secretary, and McDonald's is basically poison. And I also find it strange for members of government to be promoting a private corporation. But then there was another photo op that comes to mind where RFK was on a private plane and he was taking some sort of methylene blue sort of substance, and that was promotion he went from promoting McDonald's to then promoting methylene blue. And some people said, oh, this is a very good prophylactic, but you've been warning people about methylene blue. Could we venture into that discussion, if you will?
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. Well, EDTA and methylene blue are used in laboratories for staining your specimen. If it's cells, they're preservatives. EDTA is a preservative, and it is made from formaldehyde and cyanide. I mean, these are very toxic substances. They put it through a chemical morphus and it becomes an acid. So it's not good. An acid is poison. And it was approved for use in 1950 for lead poisoning, okay, by the FDA under an emergency use authorization because they didn't have any other treatment. Since then, we've evolved and we have much more benign treatments and we don't need it at all. But it's been mainstreamed now as a treatment for COVID-19 poisoning, right? Vaccine injury, shedding. This is what it's been used to. It's not approved for that. Okay, it has no FDA approval. It has no. It's not a pharmaceutical drug even. It's zero approval, and it is an industrial poison. It is used to clean the boiler rooms in nuclear power plants. Now, methylene blue is also an industrial dye. Both EDTA and methylene blue, the pharmaceutical giants have been trying to get it approved, but they keep failing the test. They failed the animal test. They failed the human test. They induced death. They tested it on autistic children, and it killed some of the children. And these are the reasons why it didn't get pharmaceutical approval. Both of these substances, and now the deceivers who want you to take it, are recommending that you take EDTA and methylene blue together, and there's a specific reason for that, because it is the next component of the weapons system. EDTA and methylene blue both bind to the graphene oxide. It will bind to the surface of these devices, these graphene oxide nanoparticles, and they serve a particular function. So EDTA, it binds to the surface of graphene oxide and it chelates other metals away from the graphene oxide. So the graphene oxide devices will work better in the body. The nanoparticles can be deployed more thoroughly throughout the body. It enables transfection or genetic modification of the genome. That's EDTA because it purifies the specimen or purifies the devices, okay? If you use graphene oxide alone without the EDTA, there is a tendency for other metals to stick to it and prevent its operability or reduce its operability. So EDTA has that function. It also deteriorates your DNA. It's a genotoxin. And in that way, it enables transfection to go more smoothly. It has a third purpose. It also preserves the production of the spike protein in those targeted and mRNA modified cells to last longer, to emit a luminescence or a light that enables track and trace, because the spike proteins have a shelf life. They can only last for so long. And the EDTA preserves that process for longer. Okay, it serves the purpose of the agenda of this operating system or weapon system. Methylene blue. Now, that is another thing. What I found just absolutely horrified me. It binds to the second strand of the DNA. It embeds itself into your DNA and stains it and stays there. It is a forever chemical. So is EDTA. They are forever chemicals. Your body cannot detox it. It remains, it's in the body. That is why they use formaldehyde after a person dies, because it's such a powerful preservative. So your body can't detox these. These are forever chemicals. You have to use a protocol and use natural medicines to push them out. Powerful, natural medicines or supplements like the ones in my protocol, they will push out forever chemicals. But you have to do a thorough detox after you've used either one of these substances. But the methylene blue, they've dissected people's brains after they used methylene blue, and they're preserved. They're blue. Wow. So not only does it bind to the DNA, and what does that do? Well, methylene blue is a mutagen. That means it mutates your DNA. It disrupts the natural expression of your DNA, mutating it into something else. And it also, how it works, and by the way, that enables the patent holders of these so-called vaccines to externally control your genome much easier. They can upregulate and downregulate genetic codes. They can, with nanoparticles, target your frontal cortex and lobotomize you. I've seen it. I've seen people, grown adults, suddenly lobotomized, unable to form sentences.
Wow.
I've had to bring people back from these kinds of injuries. They can do this remotely, and the methylene blue enables that because it sticks to the DNA. Now, methylene blue also binds to the surface of graphene oxide nanoparticles, and it has an electrical reaction occurs between the graphene oxide and the methylene blue, and that electricity, that electrical spark that is created, fuels the weapon system. It gives energy to the graphene oxide devices, enabling it to operate more effectively because it needs to draw energy from somewhere. This technology harvests energy from your body movements, but it also gets energy from substances like methylene blue. This is why the deceivers want people using methylene blue because, well, the people I work with who do dark field microscopy, Dr. Robert Young, my mentor, and also his students, we collaborate. Every one of us are finding graphene in every single blood sample that we look at. It has spread through the population. They are saturating us with it. So you have to constantly be detoxing, at least on some kind of a maintenance type protocol that, and it doesn't have to cost very much money. But that way you are chelating out and pushing out the graphene oxide and the heavy metals faster, and the poisons, bacteria, the parasites, that they're using on us. You're able to push them out faster than they're coming in. So we have to aid and assist our body and to do this, because this technology is designed to shut down the immune system, to accumulate in your body and be impossible to detox it. So EDTA and methylene blue are the next component of the weapon system. They could not roll this out through pharmaceuticals. If the pharmaceutical giants or the biotech industry introduced methylene blue and EDTA as a solution to vaccine-induced injury or the COVID shedding, people would be like, no, you guys have to get approval first. What the hell are you doing? And they would reject it. It had to be brought out through a PSYOP, looking like a grassroots movement. And to make people want it, to get people to poison themselves. Neither one of these are approved for use in humans. So why the hell haven't the regulatory agencies intervened and said, no, you guys, we're going to shut this down. We're going to arrest you now for selling this as a supplement, for IV infusing this industrial poisons into people's veins, because it suits the agenda. It's part of it. And that's what my research leads me to conclude. And the people who are deceiving others about EDTA and methylene blue, they're using scientific studies but lying about them, twisting the research to fit their agenda. And honest to God, it's a complex subject, and I don't expect the layman to understand it. That's why I do this research, because I know that there are very few people on earth who can do it and who will speak out. So, but the things that I found about methylene blue is terrifying. It activates the weapon system. It gives electrical power to the graphene oxide nano devices.
Wow, very concerning to say the least. We are near the end of our program. One thing I forgot to mention is today is Bandcamp Friday. Bandcamp is the website that hosts music for independent artists such as myself. And Bandcamp Friday means if you buy a song today, all the money goes to the artist. So please go to jeremiahhosea.com and buy the theme song for this show, or buy any number of songs that are available. I've also produced a few albums over the years with different artists, some classics from the indie underground. If you would, I recommend you buy. The first album I produced was called No One's Slave. Go figure. I wouldn't want to be coerced into taking an experimental medical intervention. I come up with titles like No One's Slave, because I believe that you are no one's slave and I am no one's slave. So that's JeremiahHosea.com. We had a few callers on the line, and then a few callers dropped off. I don't know if they thought we were going to go right to callers. I didn't mean to suggest that. I meant that you could hold on and wait for this portion of the program where we try to sneak in a call or two. But again, the number is 888-874-4888, 888-874-4888. We're about to finish up here, so if you could jump in and ask a question, we'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, Dr. Love, can you take your time and tell us various ways that people can follow your work? Tell us about your Substack, how people follow you on X or any other venue that you'd like to direct us towards.
Well, thank you, Jeremiah. The best place to follow me would be my Substack, which is at Dr. for Dr. Love, and then my first name, Ariyana. So it's kind of backwards. Love is first. Dr. Love Ariyana. And I'm also at X on the same handle. I had a Telegram channel, but I was banned from Telegram recently. I had a website called ambassadorlove.blog, and I was publishing there for the last, since 2019. But they hijacked my website. I'm not able to get in. They must have stolen the email or something, changed the email. So this is what keeps happening to me. So anyway, I went over to Substack. You can find me also at my website, Dr. Love, drlove.live, Live. And I do have a contact page. You can reach out to me. I do a sliding scale. I do like to help everybody. I don't want really to turn anybody away if they are in a low income, because one thing of the things that was very important to me was to find a detox solution for everybody. I was taking pro bono clients always, a percentage of pro bono clients that I could throughout the last 5 years. And I studied everything. I studied every single technique or supplement or natural medicine and pharmaceuticals too, anything that people are claiming they use in their protocols to detox people. And I know what works. I know what doesn't work. I've trialed everything. My clients over the years have tried everything. I know what they use in clinics. I've researched it all because I wanted to know. I wanted to be informed. I wanted to sincerely help people. So there are detox solutions no matter your income. And the important thing is to not to hesitate, but to be using something, to have some kind of a protocol that will support your immune system and chelate these poisons out. And it is, we've had some breakthroughs recently. So it's, more affordable than ever to detox.
Yeah, that sounds very encouraging. And I recommend you guys reach out to Dr. Love. She's mentioned certain things in X spaces that I found very fascinating in terms of some really specific health ideas that I haven't heard from others. So please reach out to her. And again, if you want to jump in the conversation here, we only have a couple minutes left. So the number is 888-874-4888. If you have the courage to call, we'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask you a question quickly, Dr. Love, in the few minutes we have left.
Sure.
It's something I ask various medical freedom doctors because I'm genuinely fascinated by the question, which is, do you think it's possible for someone to have received one of these mRNA injections with the lipid nanoparticle delivery system and have not affected their health in a negative way? Because, of course, we see people who they've taken as many as 6 boosters. I've never actually come across firsthand a vaccine zealot who says they've taken all 10, but I've come across people who say, I've taken 6 shots and I feel fine. And how is it that one person's taken several shots and they can honestly, or I don't know if it's honest, but they could say they feel fine. They haven't had a cardiac event yet. They haven't been diagnosed with turbo cancer and autoimmune disorder yet. But then you have other people, they take one shot. Sometimes it doesn't even take two, and their health is destroyed within whether it's 24 hours or a 1 week period or 2 week period. But they take this shot and then their health is just ravaged. Can a person receive one of these shots and have not harmed themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are changing in the patents, they specifically state that they change the embodiments. So they can have a saline or something that has delayed release technology. All of the jabs have delayed release technology. So they can activate the weapon system to burst and explode with poison nanotech later on, months, years later. And they can do this externally by frequency blasts. So people get different things. And then there is the website, How Bad Is My Batch, where you can upload your lot number. This was leaked information from a hacker. They found that the pharmaceutical companies are measuring their jabs based on, a saline bad batch and a very bad batch. So you can see what you got. So yeah, they change it up. That way it's hard to track what they're doing if people are having different experiences. It actually creates, it causes people to fight, creates division, because one person, I can't tell you how many people I come across, they really don't care that other people are injured and dying from these injections as long as they're fine. I see this all the time, and it just blows my mind.
Me too.
One of the things that is happening is that people's personality is changing. They are changing. Let's see, a Slovakian MP came forward and he released information recently. They did an investigation into COVID-19 vaccinated persons and found that humans are genetically modified organisms.
Wow.
And this is an aerosolized system. So basically, that it means, they're changing us on a fundamental genetic level, and everybody's exposed. So you have to take daily measures to protect yourself, and that is possible. And that's what I teach people how to do.
Right.
You have to have enough of a certain kind of medicine, natural medicines, to be effective, for a protocol to be effective. And one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is just that they don't have the knowledge how to do that.
Yeah.
And what the body needs. So.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Love. Your insight is really remarkable. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope we can talk again sometime soon. Your perspective is certainly a unique one, and I find it invigorating and quite impressive. So everyone, please enjoy your weekend. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We will be doing Stop the Shots tonight on X. If you're not a member of that community, excuse me, please correct that. Please join the Stop the Shots community on X. Please subscribe to my Substack for free. Please subscribe to Dr. Love's Substack, or be a paid subscriber if you can. I'd greatly appreciate that as well. Please check out JeremiahHosea.com. Go grab the theme song for this show and support the effort that I put forth here every week. This was just the 90th straight week of the Bassline. No replays, no sick days. And thank you for supporting this program in every respect, by listening, by subscribing, and by telling your friends. And thank you so much, Dr. Love. You're truly doing some great work, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and all that you're doing is truly outstanding.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Your questions are phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Stop the shots.
When you walk with open arms, arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, 'cause you